Christmas dinner at my in-laws' house always followed the same rhythm. Loud greetings, overlapping conversations, coats thrown over chairs, the smell of roasted meat and cinnamon candles mixing in the air. It was familiar in a way that used to feel comforting, predictable, safe. The kind of evening where nothing bad was supposed to happen. Sarah sat beside me at the long dining table, her knee angled toward mine, her hand resting lightly on my thigh every so often as she laughed at someone's joke. She looked perfect. Not overdressed, not casual. Just right. She'd put her hair up in that loose, effortless way she knew I liked. The one that always made people say she looked natural. Even though I knew it took effort. I remember thinking, this is good. This is solid. The table was full. Her parents at either end. Her sister and husband across from us. A couple of cousins, and her mom's new obsession. Our nephew, who banged his fork against his plate every time someone raised their voice. Wine glasses were refilled. Plates scraped. Someone argued about which Christmas movie was the best. And Sarah leaned over to whisper her answer in my ear instead of saying it out loud. Then she stood up. She didn't announce it. She didn't tap her glass. She just rose from her chair naturally, and somehow the room followed her without resistance. Conversations faded. Forks paused mid-air. Even the nephew went quiet, sensing something important was happening. Sarah lifted her glass, smiling at everyone in that warm, practiced way that made people feel seen. "I just want to say something," she said. Her voice was calm, confident. The voice she used at work events, at weddings, at moments where she knew people were listening. "I know the holidays can be stressful," she continued, glancing around the table. "But nights like this remind me what actually matters. Family, trust, love." Her mom's eyes were already shining. "I think the strongest relationships are the ones built on honesty," Sarah said. "On choosing each other every day. On not having secrets." My chest tightened just a little, though I didn't know why yet. "Real relationships," she added, "don't survive without transparency, without respect, without knowing that the person next to you is fully there with you." Her sister smiled. Someone murmured, "That's beautiful." Our nephew clapped, completely offbeat, just because everyone else looked emotional. I raised my glass with everyone else, smiling automatically, nodding like I agreed with every word. Like none of it felt strangely heavy. That's when her phone lit up. It was lying face up near the edge of the table, close enough that the glow reflected faintly off my wine glass. The screen flared to life, bright against the dim warmth of the dining room. I didn't mean to read it. I just did. "Already miss you, baby." The words hit me before my brain could slow them down. Underneath the message preview was a name I didn't recognize. Travis. And below that, partially visible, cropped by the notification banner, was a photo thumbnail. White walls. Soft lighting. A mirror. Sarah, unmistakably Sarah. Wrapped in a robe I had never seen in our house. My stomach dropped so suddenly I felt dizzy. For a split second, I thought I'd misunderstood. That my eyes had filled in details that weren't there. But the longer the screen stayed lit, the clearer it became. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a random message. This wasn't nothing. Sarah was still talking. She was saying something about gratitude, about commitment, about how lucky she felt. I couldn't hear her anymore. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. My hand hovered over the table, unsure whether to grab the phone or pull away from it like it might burn me. I waited until she paused for breath, then gently slid the phone toward her with 2 fingers. "Hey," I said quietly, keeping my voice low. "Who's Travis?" She didn't look down right away. She laughed first. It was quick, light, almost reflexive. "Oh my God," she said softly, waving her hand like I just teased her about something harmless. "That's just a coworker." I didn't smile back. "He sends you stuff like that?" I asked. She glanced at the screen this time. Barely a glance, then met my eyes again without missing a beat. "Yeah," she said. "He's weird. Honestly, he sends strange texts to everyone. It's kind of his thing. Keeps people guessing." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "And the photo?" I asked. She leaned closer, lowering her voice further. "We're planning a surprise for your sister. I can't say much. It's complicated." Her smile never left her face. Not once. I scanned the table instinctively, half expecting someone to be watching us. No one was. Her mom was wiping tears. Her dad was reaching for more wine. The moment belonged entirely to her. Sarah raised her glass again. "To love," she said brightly, "and to never taking it for granted." Everyone echoed it. Glasses clinked. Someone joked that she should give speeches more often. Laughter rippled around the table like everything was normal. Sarah sat back down and slipped her phone into her lap. Her knee brushed mine under the table, familiar and grounding. "You okay?" she whispered, tilting her head. "You look kind of pale." "Yeah," I said after a second. "Just tired." She nodded, satisfied, and turned back to the conversation. Dinner continued. Dessert was served. Stories were told. I laughed at the right moments, nodded when spoken to, lifted my glass when everyone else did. I played my role well, but inside, something had shifted. The words from her toast replayed in my head. Honesty, transparency, no secrets, and they felt suddenly sharp, like they'd been aimed at me without my consent. I didn't confront her. Not at Christmas. Not at that table. Not while everyone around us believed the version of her she just presented so beautifully. I stayed quiet, and in that silence, something important broke. Slowly, quietly, without anyone else noticing. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there beside Sarah, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing, staring at the ceiling while the glow from the streetlight outside cut a thin line across the room. Every time she shifted, my body tensed, waiting for her to say something. Anything. She didn't. She slept easily, like nothing unusual had happened. Like she hadn't stood in front of her family and spoken about honesty while her phone lit up with someone else calling her baby. At some point after midnight, I realized I wasn't going to rest. My mind kept circling the same question. How long? Not how long the affair had been going on. I wasn't even ready to say that word yet, but how long the signs had been there without me wanting to see them. Once I started thinking about it, the memories came fast. The phone had been the first thing to change. Sarah used to leave it anywhere, on the counter, on the couch, screen facing up. At some point, I'd noticed she started placing it face down, every time like muscle memory. When I asked her about it once, she'd laughed and said she didn't like notifications lighting up the room. I'd accepted that explanation without thinking twice. Then there were the showers. She used to leave her phone charging on the dresser. Lately, she brought it into the bathroom with her, even when she was just taking a quick rinse. I told myself it was podcasts, music, habit. Anything except what it might actually be. The schedule changes came next. Evening meetings that ran late but never came with details. Saturday morning workouts, despite the fact that Sarah had spent years insisting she hated gyms. She suddenly cared about fitness, about timing her meals, about new leggings and sports bras that seemed less about comfort and more about being seen. I remembered the first time she'd locked herself in the guest room for a call. I'd knocked, half joking, asking if she was plotting something without me. Her response had been sharp, irritated in a way that felt out of proportion. She told me I was distracting her and closed the door harder than necessary. I'd apologized afterward. There was the smell. I tried not to dwell on it at the time. She'd come home from yoga one evening, flushed and smiling, but underneath her usual shampoo was something else. Cologne. Not overpowering, but present. When I mentioned it, she'd rolled her eyes and said the studio was crowded, that someone probably brushed past her. I'd felt stupid for even asking. Each moment alone had been easy to dismiss. Together, they formed a shape I hadn't wanted to trace. Around 3 in the morning, Sarah shifted again, turning her back to me. Her phone buzzed softly on the nightstand, screen lighting up for just a second before going dark. I didn't look at it. I stared at the ceiling and told myself that if I reached for it, something would change forever. By morning, I felt hollowed out. At breakfast, she acted normal, too normal. She asked if I wanted coffee, complained about traffic, mentioned a busy week ahead. Her hand rested on my shoulder as she passed behind me, affectionate in a way that felt rehearsed. I nodded along, answered when necessary, played my part. But inside, the pattern had locked into place. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't imagination. This was repetition. And repetition meant intent. When she left for work, kissing my cheek like always, I stood in the doorway and watched her drive away. The house felt different once she was gone. Quieter, like it was holding its breath. That was the moment I understood something I hadn't wanted to admit before. I hadn't been missing the signs. I'd been ignoring them. The following week moved slower than it should have. Every day felt stretched thin, like time itself was waiting for something to snap. Sarah acted calm, almost relaxed, but there was a precision to everything she did that hadn't been there before. Her movements were deliberate. Her words were chosen. Even her smiles felt measured, like she was performing normal instead of living it. On Thursday morning, she told me she had a corporate event in a nearby city. Not a meeting, not a dinner, an event. She said it casually while scrolling through her phone, like it barely mattered. "I'll probably stay late," she added. "Might even crash at the hotel if it runs long." I nodded, keeping my face neutral. "Sounds important." "It is," she said, finally looking up. "Big clients." That afternoon, I watched her pack. She stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, holding up outfits, discarding them, choosing again. She tried on shoes she rarely wore. She applied makeup with care, blending slowly, checking herself from different angles. When she reached for her favorite perfume, the one she usually saved for anniversaries, I felt my chest tighten. "You smell nice," I said. She smiled without turning around. First impressions. When she left, suitcase rolling behind her, she kissed me lightly and told me not to wait up. The door closed softly, not rushed, not guilty. I waited 5 minutes. Then I picked up the tablet. Months earlier, I'd synced it to her phone for convenience. Shared photos, shared calendars. We'd both forgotten about it. Or at least I had assumed she had. I hadn't touched it since. My hands shook as I unlocked it. The messages loaded slowly, like they were giving me one last chance to stop. I didn't. There it was. Travis. The chat thread stretched back weeks. Longer than I'd hoped, shorter than I'd feared. I scrolled, reading without breathing. Same place as last time. Book the room under my name. He won't notice this time. I told him I'm with the girls. My vision blurred. Then a photo appeared. Not of her this time, but of our house key, resting in her palm. "If anything," she typed, "use the side door. The dog barks but won't bite." I stared at the screen until the words stopped looking real. This wasn't just secrecy. This wasn't just betrayal. This was planning. She wasn't sneaking around. She was coordinating, anticipating, accounting for me like an obstacle, not a husband. I sat there in the quiet house, the tablet heavy in my hands, and felt something inside me go completely still. No anger, no panic, just clarity. This wasn't a mistake. This was a system, and I was standing in the middle of it without having known. I didn't sleep that night, but I didn't lie awake either. I moved. Around midnight, once I was sure Sarah was gone for good. Gone the way people are when they have no intention of checking in. I got up from the couch and walked slowly through the house. The dog followed at a distance, confused by my silence. I didn't say a word, just moved. I started by checking every door, every window, not for safety, just habit. But when I reached the basement, something tugged at the edge of my memory. I couldn't place it, not immediately. I just stood there staring at the door, hand hovering over the knob. We never used the basement for much. It was cold, cluttered, filled with boxes we never opened. No reason to go down there, really, except, hadn't she been down here recently? I hadn't thought about it until now, but I remembered something. 2 weeks ago, I was looking for the holiday lights. She told me they were already upstairs, that she grabbed them earlier. I hadn't questioned it, but I also remembered hearing her close the basement door that same day. The doorknob turned easily. The stairs creaked under my weight, louder than usual. like they hadn't been walked on in a while. The air smelled faintly of dust and something sharper, alcohol maybe, or sweat. I reached the bottom and stopped. There, in the far corner of the room, was something that didn't belong. 2 foldable camping chairs, a lantern, a half-empty bottle of whiskey, an open pack of peanuts, all arranged in a tight little circle like a temporary living room. Nothing fancy, but intentional, clean, used. I walked slowly toward the setup, checking for signs, trash, receipts, stains. There was none of that. Whoever used this space didn't leave behind mess. They left behind comfort. One of the chairs had a pillow on it. Not from the basement, from our couch. I looked at the lock on the basement's exterior door, the one that opened to the side yard. It had been changed. I recognized the brushed metal, new, cleaner than the old brass we'd had for years. I hadn't replaced it, and Sarah hadn't mentioned it. I didn't touch anything. I didn't move the chairs or open the door. I just stood there for a long time, feeling the weight of what this meant settle onto my shoulders. There had been someone else in my house. Not once. Repeatedly. Comfortably. The idea of it made my skin crawl. The idea that while I was upstairs, watching TV, folding laundry, thinking the woman I loved was out working or sweating in a gym, someone had been down here, with her, drinking, laughing, eating peanuts. I went back upstairs in silence and sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the tiles. Later that week, I bought a small hidden camera. One of those motion-triggered ones meant for offices or Airbnb rentals. It had night vision, a long battery life, and the ability to save footage directly to a cloud folder. I installed it in the hallway, angled toward the side door. Not in plain sight. Above the coat hooks, nestled in a shadow, small enough to disappear. I didn't tell anyone, not even myself. For the next several nights, I left it running. Sarah didn't notice. She acted normal, casual, sweet, affectionate. She asked about dinner, about weekend plans. She brought home a bottle of red we both liked and suggested a movie night. I played along because I had to, because if I even blinked wrong, I knew she'd see it. But every morning I checked the camera footage. And on the third night I saw it. Around 2:07 a.m. She got out of bed. The bedroom door opened softly. She crept into the hallway barefoot, hair tied up, wearing a hoodie that wasn't mine. She moved silently toward the side door and paused in front of it, looking left and right like a child sneaking out past curfew. Then she opened it slowly. She whispered something. I couldn't hear it. The camera had no sound. She stepped aside, waiting. No one entered. She waited a few seconds more, then glanced behind her, toward the staircase. Then she stepped out and closed the door behind her. Gone. I played the clip back 6 times. Watched her movements. Watched the way her body shifted when she thought no one was watching. Watched the way she checked if I was watching. The footage stopped there. The camera only triggered when someone passed through. She didn't come back until nearly 4:30 a.m., slipping back inside the same way she left. Quiet. Precise. She never mentioned it the next morning. I didn't either. But now I knew. The side door wasn't just a door. It was an exit. And whatever she was doing, wherever she was going, it had nothing to do with gyms or client dinners. It was here. It had always been here. Just outside the frame of what I let myself believe. The hardest part wasn't the lying. It was the ease of it. Sarah wasn't fumbling. She wasn't stumbling over half-truths or nervously covering her tracks. She was comfortable. She moved through our house with the calmness of someone who believed she'd already won. Like the real game was somewhere else and I was just part of the background now. Placeholder. A face on a family photo she no longer looked at. The camera footage became part of my morning ritual. Wake up. Coffee. Check last night's clip. Watch my wife sneak out like a teenager and return hours later like nothing happened. No confrontation. No drama. Just silence. Controlled observation. Then one night she didn't sneak out. Not through the side door, at least. She came home late. Said she'd grab drinks with coworkers. She smelled like rosemary and citrus. Not her usual perfume. She kissed me once, softly, and went upstairs to shower. I watched her from the kitchen, wondering if she knew I knew, if part of her wanted me to catch her outright, just so the pretending could finally stop. The next morning, she said she needed to drive out to a neighboring city. Something about a branch office opening. She used words like corporate visibility and regional exposure, and when I asked if it was an overnight trip, she smiled. Just a few hours, she said. I'll be back before dinner. I nodded. Should I bring anything back? She asked, keys already in hand. Just yourself, I said. She laughed at that like we were flirting. Then she was gone. This time I followed her. Not immediately. I gave her a head start, 10 minutes, maybe a little more. Then I got in my car, took the tablet, and used the tracking software I'd quietly activated the week before. It was subtle, just location pings based on app activity. I told myself I wouldn't use it unless I had to. I had to. She wasn't heading to any office. She took the highway out of town, then exited near the industrial district. Rows of old warehouses, shuttered supply shops, and commercial buildings that had clearly seen better decades. I parked half a block behind her and K** led the engine. It was quiet, too quiet for a work meeting. She got out of her car wearing dark jeans, a black coat, and sunglasses, despite the cloud cover. She looked around, then crossed the street toward a fenced-off gravel lot behind what looked like an abandoned freight company. My heart beat so hard I could feel it in my teeth. She wasn't meeting Travis. That much became clear almost immediately. Travis was a name on a screen, warmth, flirtation, hotel rooms. Whoever this was, he wasn't that. He stood near the back of the lot, beside a beat-up black SUV. Tall, broad shoulders, military posture, wearing all black. He didn't move when he saw her. He just waited. Sarah walked up to him quickly, said something I couldn't hear, and pulled something from her coat pocket. A flash drive. She handed it over without hesitation. The man didn't respond. He took it, nodded once, then turned and walked toward the SUV like it was any other transaction. Sarah stood there for a few seconds after he left, arms crossed, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. Then she smiled. Not her polite smile. Not her forced "I'm fine" smile. This one was real. It scared the hell out of me. I ducked lower in my seat as she turned to head back toward her car. I didn't follow her home. I waited until she was gone, then pulled around the block and parked where the SUV had been. I walked over the gravel, heart pounding. No one was there. No traces left behind. I stared at the ground where she'd stood, trying to picture her face again. The way she'd handed that flash drive over like it meant nothing. But it meant something. Everything meant something now. Travis hadn't been the main act. He was a distraction, a shiny object, a convenient affair to keep me busy while something else moved beneath the surface. Whatever she was doing, whatever she was exchanging, it wasn't about romance. It wasn't about love. It was about access to what I didn't know yet. But the one thing I was sure of, it wasn't about me anymore. It never had been. I didn't confront Sarah. I didn't ask about Travis, the flash drive, or the man in black. Instead, I acted quietly. I changed every password: banking, cloud storage, insurance. I moved money, locked accounts, rerouted sensitive data. She thought she was running the play, but I was building a firewall around everything she could possibly touch. The camera kept recording. So did her phone. Every message synced to my tablet. Every deleted photo backed up elsewhere. When she returned, smiling and talking about resetting our relationship, I nodded, pretending to believe her. She poured wine. I toasted to new beginnings. But by then, every message she'd sent, every whisper near the door, every lie she thought was invisible, was in a file. That file was already with my lawyer, and her sister, and the police. This wasn't revenge. It was insurance. 3 days later, her other man was arrested at the border. Fake documents, a burner phone, cash. Sarah was removed from the house by court order. I changed the locks, the alarm codes, even the Wi-Fi name. The silence that followed wasn't sad. It was peaceful. For the first time in months, I heard the hum of the refrigerator, the rustle of the dog's paws on hardwood. No more whispers, no more lies, just me. I sat with a cup of tea, watching the steam rise, thinking about how close I'd come to losing everything. My name, my life, my identity. But I didn't. I was still here, still standing, and I would never be erased again.